Meantime, some stubborn inflation continues to be a thorn in the side of the U.S. economy. New data showing consumer prices rose 3.4% in the month of April versus the same time last year as Americans struggle to keep up with higher costs. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze joins me now for more on this. Elizabeth, good to see you. Start by breaking this down for us. What do these numbers tell us?
Hey, Phil, this is a sign that inflation is getting a little bit better. So that 3.4% rate, still too high, a lot higher than what is the norm, around 2%, but it shows that a rate is going down. We were at 3.5% last month, and overall, when you kind of look at the areas where prices are up and down in this report, you do see some cooling in places where people are really feeling the impact of inflation. So you saw prices go down for groceries, you saw new and used car prices go down, utility and electricity prices. On the other hand, we are looking at what you called it stubborn inflation, and that's on a lot of day-to-day costs too. So rent still going up, restaurants, eating out, still a lot more expensive on a monthly basis. So this is really a report that shows that, okay, maybe we're heading in the right direction, but still a little ways to go when it comes to the cost that so many families are bearing right now.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said yesterday the Fed needs to remain patient, his word, with the interest rate policy. Does this report change anything about that?
The Fed right now is in wait-and-see mode. It's looking at these inflation reports really closely every month to try to figure out if we're at a point yet where it can start cutting interest rates. And remember, we've been hoping that the Fed and looking for the Fed had been hoping to start cutting rates around this time, but instead that timeline keeps getting postponed. What this report will likely do is give them a little bit of confidence that they can start lowering borrowing costs. So that affects a mortgage, a new car loan, but it's probably not going to happen for a little while still. They want to see continued improvement. As the Fed chair says, as Powell says, we're not quite there yet. We need to get a little bit more time to see if this data keeps cooling, if we're still heading in the right direction with inflation. So wait a little bit longer, wait and see if we get there in the months ahead. Maybe still this year, but certainly the hope is that for a lot of people who are borrowing money sooner rather than later.
Well, families feeling the pressure when it comes to paying for college, speaking about borrowing money, how are high interest rates hitting these students? I mean, there's this big disconnect between what happens on Wall Street and what's felt on Main Street. But in this specific area, how is it affecting?
Exactly, and this is one of those places where we've seen that because the Fed has kept borrowing costs high, it does ripple into the cost that people are paying when it comes to taking out new student loans. So basically, once a year, the Education Department will set federal student loan rates, and this just happened, and what they've done is they've actually increased the rate for an undergraduate student loan by a full percentage point. So in the current academic year, we were looking at a rate at about 5.5%. You can see there now it's going to be up to 6.5% in the 2024-2025 academic year. When you're looking at how this kind of ripples into people's finances, it does add up over time. So for the typical loan that'll be $10,000 for an undergrad federal student loan, you're going to end up paying about $600 more in interest over the life of that loan. So currently it would be about $3,000 total in interest. At this new rate, it's going to be $3,600. This is on top of already high tuition prices. It's an added cost for a lot of families, but we have absolutely seen, Phil, how these higher borrowing costs, which has been the effect of high inflation. This is the Fed's tool to try to lower the prices we pay, but the fact is people are still having a hard time because of higher prices and higher inflation at the same time that these borrowing costs are also staying high. The one glimmer of hope that I think we should point out here is that while inflation is high, we are also seeing wages go up. And what this report today confirms is that wages have now been going up on average for a year higher than inflation. And basically what that means, people's paychecks are going up at a faster pace than inflation. That helps absorb at least some of these higher costs that people are paying.
I'll try to remember that as I have 2 kids in college right now.
Exactly.
Elizabeth, thanks so much.